All right, guys, I've always been an incredibly ambitious person, and dreaming big has never been an issue for me. Whether it was during my baseball career, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. Now that I'm in my business career, I want to be incredibly successful. And I have this vision of having millions of followers and this huge impact and speaking on stages and writing books and all these different things. And for a while, I was afraid to share that. And that's exactly why in the past I had such a difficult time actually accomplishing the goals that I had set out for myself. And so I just recently had this breakthrough mentally that took off this lid that I had been placing over myself for the longest time. And so let me give you guys a little bit of context into what I mean, because we are constantly creating the reality that we live in, but we're creating it based on the identity that we assume in the past. Because based on who we believe that we are going to act in accordance with who we believe that we are. Therefore, we're going to get the results of those actions. And it all comes down to who do we believe that we are? It all comes down to your identity, right? And so let me tell you guys a story to try and illustrate this point of how my identity was fragile and it limited my ability to accomplish my goals. So, my freshman year of college, I was at the University of Notre Dame. I was the starting right fielder and leadoff hitter on opening day. And when I went into Notre Dame, I had a mission that I was going to start as a freshman and that I was going to have this great year. And I set my goal at the beginning of the season before obviously any of the games mattered. I had won a starting job. I was one of the best hitters in the team in practice, and I had flat out outright earned that spot, right? And so I set a goal at the beginning of the year that I wanted to be a freshman All American. And it was my goal by the time I graduated to hit 10 home runs in a year and steal 20 bases in the same year. And the reason why I set that goal is because AJ Pollock, who ended up playing like 10 years in the major leagues, had done the exact same thing at Notre Dame. And so I was like, well, if I want to be a Major League Baseball player, then that is what I have to do. So I already had this concept of be, do, have, but I kind of had it backwards. Okay. Let me explain. So, opening day, I go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. Going into the year, I was super excited. Freshman All American. I'm going to be a high draft pick one day. I can't wait. And then I go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. And I started to question if I was actually that good. I started to question if I was actually that guy. And so what happened? Well, I started panicking. I started living with stress and anxiety. I spiked my cortisol levels, and I played every single game as somebody who wasn't sure if they were actually good. My identity was incredibly fragile. And so as a result of that, I finished the year hitting 175. I struck out like 40% of my at bats, which for those of you guys that don't know anything about baseball is metrically terrible. Okay. Why am I sharing this story with you? Well, setting ambitious goals is a great thing. I believe that setting ambitious goals and the ambition of human beings is what drives progress forward and allows us to get better year after year after year, decade after decade as a human race. I think ambition is amazing. Where I went wrong is not in the goal setting, it's that the minute that my identity was at stake, it cracked. Or the minute that it was put to the test, I cracked because I didn't realize that I first needed to become the person who hits 10 home runs and steals 20 bases in a year emotionally first and assume the identity of that person. Because if you think about it, if I had ultimate conviction that that was going to be the case, that I was going to create that reality and that I was going to be a freshman All American, that I was going to perform it at an exceptionally high level, If I went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts on opening day, I would have just said, wow, okay, whatever. It's part of the story. But what did I do? I started to question if I was actually even a good baseball player, which at the time was ridiculous because I hit over 300 in practice and there were multiple big league pitchers on that team and tons of professional pitchers. I could hit, but I didn't have a solid enough identity. I didn't have a solid enough perception of who I was. And I was living from what I call the outside in. I was letting reality tell me how I should feel about myself. I was emotionally dependent on what was happening in the world around me. So the minute that something started to go bad, I would panic. And it's a cycle that I found myself in over and over and over and over again. I would set this goal. I would get really excited. I would put it on a pedestal. I would work super hard. I would hit a little bit of adversity. Then I would start to panic. Then I would spiral downward. I would hit rock bottom. I would realize that I needed to make a change. And then I would work super hard and work myself back up and set a goal. And I would do the entire thing over and over and over and over and over again. At the end of the day, that is why I went to 4 schools. That's why I couldn't stay at one place because I would just self destruct anytime I would veer off the path a little bit. So, what is the mental breakthrough that I've been able to have? And how has that allowed me to continue to grow? And now I feel like I've removed this lid on my life and I'm nowhere close to the vision that I have in my mind. And it's been incredibly difficult for me to want to make this video because I'm not where, I quote unquote want to be yet. But I thought, what better reason to make this video as proof? Because in 5 years or 10 years, when the reality that I spoke out of my mind at the beginning of this video comes true, I'm going to have documented proof that what I'm saying to you guys is true. And I'm going to shout this from the tops of the mountains over and over and over and over again. Because the thing is, you have to be that person first before reality catches up. And the problem that I had was that anytime reality was not going the way that I needed it to emotionally to feel like that person, I would start to question, I would panic, and I would nosedive. And now, what do? It's no big deal. I've taken this reality, I've taken these goals off of a pedestal because I am already that person right now. Reality just hasn't caught up yet. I am already that person right now. Reality just hasn't caught up yet. And so I can weather the ups and the downs of the day to day because I'm no longer emotionally dependent on seeing a certain amount of money come in per day, seeing a certain amount of views come in per day, or whatever it is that we're going to place our emotions on. I am no longer emotionally dependent on these external things. I'm living from the inside out. And so I have already created the internal state and the identity of who I want to be. And I've chosen it. I no longer want to be anything. I am what I wanted to be already. And so now I'm just waiting for reality to catch up. And as a result of that, I'm no longer emotionally dependent on seeing the reality, the world around me change because internally I already have it. And so if you can understand this concept, and you can really buy into what I'm saying. You can morph reality, you can morph the world to align with whatever it is that you want because the external world around us is just a projection of our internal reality. The problem that most people have is they don't understand that there's a delay. There is a delay. You choose who you want to be, you commit to that identity, and then you have to be patient in reality. You have to be patient in reality. I have already decided who I am. I am committed to that identity. And then whatever happens in reality, even if reality doesn't show me that I am that person that I have in my mind yet, it doesn't matter because I am already that person internally. If you can grasp these concepts, if you can grasp the words that I'm saying, I promise you, this will absolutely change your life. This was a huge breakthrough that I have made recently that I wanted to share with you guys because for me, I've been obsessed with personal development and goal setting and accomplishing goals and improving and maxing out my stats. But it's always felt like there was a lid on what I was doing. And I could never quite fully assume the identity of the person that I wanted to be because I looked around and I was like, well, reality hasn't changed that way yet. So I can't talk like that yet. Or I can't act like that yet. What if the reason why my reality doesn't match what I want is because I'm afraid to talk like that, is because I'm afraid to act like that. I'm afraid to actually be that person. What if I just was that person and then as a result, reality showed me that I was that person, but I knew first? Think about it. Usually I post these videos on Friday, but I just wasn't feeling it yesterday. So hopefully you got a ton of value out of this. Hopefully it makes sense. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.